So this is homework help for Module 2, Lesson 24. Here's the homework. That's pages 128, 129, and 130. And the bonus is 4. Here's some of the work that we did in class. Okay, so we're basing it on let's look at the objective. I will divide decimal dividends by multiples of 10, reasoning about the placement of the decimal point and making connections to a written method. Alright, so let's get started with the homework help. I'm going to skip this page for now and I'll come back to it after. So we have to divide, and all of these problems are basically the same. The numbers are the same. The only difference is the decimal. Alright, so we have to use our knowledge of division to help us out here. So first things first, we're going to set it up in what I call the division house. And hopefully you know your 3 timetables. If not, you can always write them on the side. Alright, now we see the 27 here. It's 9. We're going to subtract the 27. We get a 0 here, but we have to bring down the 3 in the ones place, or in the tenths place, excuse me. And of course we have that 1 right there. Now the decimal is just right here. Okay, knowing this is going to help us understand what we do for the rest of the problems. Just knowing this basic fact, or this new quotient, is that you can see these numbers are the same, these numbers are the same, the only difference is the decimal. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change something really quick. I'm going to change this decimal back to a black decimal because that's the one that represents this one. Then I'm going to represent this decimal with a red decimal here. So my answer, if I was dividing 2 and 73 hundredths by 3, would be 0.91 or 91 hundredths. Alright, so how's that going to help me? Well, I can set this up this way. I'm pulling apart the 30. So I have 2 and 7300 divided by 3. And then I'm going to divide that by 10. So my answer to this first part, I already showed you, is 91 hundredths. Now I'm going to divide this by 10, and when I divide by 10, the number is going to move over here. The 9 is going from the tenths to the hundredths place. And then the 1 is going to move over to the thousandths place. So my answer is 91 thousandths. Okay, so now we have this problem here, and you might be going, but Mr. Veldmar, there's no decimal. There actually is a decimal. The decimal for this one would be right here. Okay, so if we were dividing by 3, the answer would be 91. So we're going to go ahead and write it again. 273 divided by 3 divided by 100. So 273 divided by 3 would just give me 81. And then I divide that by 100. And again, this time we're moving over 2 spaces. So 1, 2. So the 9's going to go in the tenths place. And the 1 is going in the hundredths place. It actually shows it to you right here because it says 91 divided by 100, which is 91 hundredths. That'll be in the future, you'll understand that a little bit better. So 91 divided by 100 is the same as 91 hundredths. If you need to draw a chart, you can go ahead and draw a chart. So where my decimal goes. So I have my 91, and I'm moving over 2 spaces, and then I have my decimal right here. I can put a 0 here. Alright, hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to show you a couple more. I want to look back at the homework really quick and make sure I don't do the ones that you're doing for homework. So I'm going to go ahead and look at E. I'm going to look at these two. They're not for homework, but it hopefully will help you. So on this one, a lot of you on the E, you probably wouldn't be able to figure out 14 and 6/10 divided by 2 in your head. Some of you could. Some of you may need to do a side work here. How did I get the 7? Well, if I count by 2, this is my 7th one. Oops, I skipped one. Dun dun dun. Gotta be careful about that. So this is my 7th one. Alright, so now I'm going to subtract the 14. It gives me a 0. I'm going to bring down the 6. This is my 3rd one, so my answer is going to be 7 3/10. So we're going to take this information and it helps us for the next problem. Alright, so we're going to do parentheses 14 and 6/10 divided by 2. Wait, we just did that. Divided by 10. So this problem goes over here. We already know the answer to that. It's 7 and 3/10. We're going to divide that by 10, and that's going to give us our 73 tenths. Hundredths, excuse me. And we moved over 1 space. Okay, so we shift to the right, okay, and that's how we got the 7300. Again, if you need to draw a place value chart, go ahead and do that. This is where my decimal lives. Alright, divided by 10. I'm going to move over 1. I'm going to move over 1. So my decimal's right here still. Alright, so let's take a look at I. I is a little bit easier if you know your 7 timetables. You can probably do this in your head. Okay? Or if you don't know your 7 timetables, you can still write it down and it will be easy enough. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and write out my 7 timetables until I get to something close to it's 56. I get to 56, and that's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my answer is going to be 8, but it's going to be 8 hundredths. You might be asking, how do you know it's 8 hundredths? Well, if we think of this as 56 hundredths, divided by 7, my answer would be 8 hundredths. And the way you write 8 hundredths is 0.08. Now, the J problem is not exactly the same. It actually has this other part, but if you look carefully, we can take the 70 apart, so we have our original problem, and divide that by 10. So again, we have our answer of 8 hundredths, make that more of an 8, divided by 10, and so we're shifting one more spot over. Now those 8s don't want to participate. Alright, so that's a 0 here. Alright, so now let's go back to explaining. So if you look at these two, you should see that the only difference is what we're dividing by. So my answer here is basically going to be divided by 10 to give me this answer. So I'm going to shift it over, and now I have to explain. So I might write down it does ask me your thinking, so I'm going to say, this thing always does this to me. The second problem, I'm going to do this here. Divides by 10 times the first problem. So you just divide the quotient by 10 for the second problem. So that's the way I would do it in words. I kind of showed you in terms of numbers. Okay, so that's basically what I am showing here. So this is times 10 to get to the 50. So I'm going to divide my answer by 10 in order to get it. Same thing happens on this one here. This is times 10. So 3 times 10 is 30. So if I divide this by 10, I'm going to get my answer. It's not always going to be the same though, so be careful. If you look at the next one, it's actually the opposite. Okay? This one is divided by 10. You don't write it that way, but I want you to see that we're dividing by 10 to get to the 7. From 70 divided by 10 equals 7. Alright, so if we divide by 10 on that side, we're going to need to multiply by 10 on the other side. So we're going to multiply. You're going to do the opposite. Okay, so this is going to give me 4 and 2/10. You might be going, how do you know that? How do you know that? Well, if you look at it the other way, if we look at the problem the way we were looking at the problems that we had before, it would be like this. So if our answer is 4 and 2/10 here, and we multiply this times 10, 7 times 10 equals 70, then we divide this by 10 just like we were doing it before, and that would shift everything to the right one more time. Alright, so today, hopefully that's helpful. And remember, you only have to explain 2 of them. You can use numbers or words, but make sure you show something. Don't just write it down. Alright, so it's bonus today. Bonus word. And sorry about yesterday. I had a lot of technical difficulty. Word is going to be shoes. I'm looking at my shoes. That's why. Again, shoes. All right, may the force be with you.